Hello and welcome back to the CMIP Panel Debate Theatre here at NAB Show 2022. We have an excellent session about to start. I'd like to talk about how to keep streaming quality up and costs down when going global. Let's welcome to the stage Andrew Audette from Attend. Andrew, over to you.
Well, thank you. I'll try to follow that great introduction. So a little bit about Attend. We've been in the media and entertainment industry, 30 years or so. Traditionally focused a lot on compression, encoding, transcoding. I think we're fairly well known for our innovation and technology and participation in standards. We've expanded and grown the last few years, more onto the video delivery side also through some acquisitions. So we now also go down through packagers, CDNs, cloud DVRs, and down to deliver to the property. So our main customers are the service provider industry, broadcasters, and the new customers are direct to consumer as this OTT business grows more and more, and we're looking to do that. What I'm going to try to talk a little bit about today is just, why do we care about quality? And obviously, everybody wants to keep their costs down. But I'm going to take a little bit of a different take on it about, how do we create some revenue through OTT and the benefits it brings and the opportunity it provides for us in the marketplace. So we'll talk real quickly about, obviously, the popularity and the growth of OTT and the new viewers and subscribers that it's going there. Obviously, things like Netflix, Disney make that pretty clear. I'm going to talk a little bit about technology and innovation and some of the things and techniques you can use for better quality, and focus a little bit on personalization. When I think of personalization, I'm going to be around targeted advertising, betting in the future, how to use the data to create revenue generation, that incremental revenue. And I'll try to put a little bit of green around it, right? We want to save energy here and be a little bit more sustainable, so we're all working on how do we, with all the processing we do, how do we reduce that to some needs and get some gains in less carbon footprint. So, obviously I could pull from lots of public sources that there's a high growth taking on in the OTT market. The good news is, it's good to have a lot of viewers. The challenge is people in the OTT market and streaming market expect things to be just as good as ever, whether it was with broadcast or cable, or whatever video quality they're used to. But they expect, close to perfect video quality, very little latency, don't have any rebuffering. And as number of people who watch streaming, as a number of people who watch events that are on streaming, things like the Olympics or FIFA soccer or whatever, latency and other quality issues become a big point that we're looking at. And so we really need to try to drive down this latency to make sure that we can gain new subscribers and keep the ones that we've been gaining and getting onto. So real quick, a little bit about, quality is really important, but also is that, incremental revenue piece is also really important too. And I focused here a little bit on targeted advertising, dynamic ad insertion, predicted to be a huge market as advertising shifts a lot, and the growth should be really high for the OTT market. We've certainly seen a lot of shift from broadcast to OTT, and we're starting to see that happen. In addition to that, one of the reasons it makes sense with this is it really helps everybody. I always struggle a little bit to say none of us really like ads too much, but hopefully targeted advertising and closer advertising will mean more to us and be a little less painful than all the advertising we look at. But the opportunity for the incremental revenue and to share in that pie from the advertising market is really shared nicely between broadcasters and service providers and the advertisers themselves. So it's an opportunity that I've seen everybody looking at. I mean, just in talking to people on the floor today, we've been focused a lot on service providers as we've been doing this and been doing some trials in the marketplace. But broadcasters are also looking at this, especially when we're going to look at new technologies like broadcast over 5G and things like that. So whether it's targeted advertising, whether it's sports betting, whether it's monetizing data sets that come out of analytics, there's a lot of opportunity for incremental revenues here in the personalization world. One example I wanted to give about latency and just the quality is, sports events are a big driver of what's going on in the OTT market. I mean, the FIFA World Cups this year, we've got cricket championships and rugby championships next year, Paris Olympics in 2024, and certainly every year the major sports going on here in the U.S. from, football, basketball, baseball, lots of opportunities to make money, especially in the streaming market in addition to it. One of the challenges is, one of the things we call the spoiler effect when we're out there talking to folks. Today pretty much there's a 5-6 second delay on broadcast or cable TV. But unfortunately, anywhere on a streaming delivery, it can be anywhere up to a minute. I would say 30 seconds, 30, 40 seconds is probably the average we see most out there in the marketplace. So the problem is if you're maybe in your house or in your apartment and somebody next door is watching on cable and you're watching on a streaming exercise and a big touchdown is scored, something like last year in the football playoffs when Buffalo and Kansas City scored about 12 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes. You got a 30-second delay, so it's hard to keep up and get mixed up in all the cheering, and people really, really want that instant gratification and want to see that right away. So one of the things that we work on, and obviously I use an ATEM slide here, but it could be a lot of different products that are out here on the show floor. But all the way, what's really important here is the end-to-end solution to achieve low latency. So we work starting from the encoding standpoint, where we think from some coding techniques and compression we can gain, a second or two. Going down through an origin packager, you can gain some time there. You want to keep the CDN, you want to get a CDN as close to the edge as you can to keep that latency low. And certainly the player, who in our case we partner with a number of players, is really important in the latency game. But when you partner together and work closely through this whole workflow, you can really reduce that workflow now on a streaming example, and we've got a number of installations out in the marketplace where you can get it down to about 5 seconds. So it's very typical to a cable operation. Wanted to talk a little bit about standardization and innovation. It's one of the things that's driving things. Certainly lots going on just the audio video quality side of the world with VVC, HVC, AV1, lots of people participating in these areas. A lot of innovations for enhancing on the delivery end, whether it's in broadcast with ATSC 3.0, whether it's open caching and edge caching, getting closer to the edge. But what's really important here is the organizations and the partnerships that take place that can make this happen. And while standards are important, you also have to have flexibility in these standards so folks can add on top of the standard, necessarily some proprietary techniques or whatever to make things even a little better. So certainly when you're out here visiting, we all have little different techniques and tricks that we do on top of the standards to help reduce that latency and improve that quality the best we can. Just real quick, and I'm not going to go deep into this because I'll go over my head quickly in this area, but we've been lucky enough to really work in our shop in France a lot about sort of techniques we can do to really improve video quality. And we'll start off initially talking about artificial intelligence and how that works and how we're trying to mimic really what the human eye sees these days. Probably impossible to ever get there, but with the availability of AI and machine learning, you can look at so many more examples and look at things in real time and save time. Video encoding optimization is really improving out there, and a lot of the techniques that we can all offer and do that. You want to get the processing down, is really increasing greatly these days, whether it's ARM processing and everybody's processing. It can make the capability of doing this optimized massive processing to sort of mimic what's going on in the brain and come closer to that. And we're really trying to look forward on that. Some of these techniques, and certainly if you come by the ATEM booth or work in other booths, we can certainly dive into more details with our engineering teams and dive into any detail you'd like. On the delivery side, certainly edge caching, intelligent caching is certainly starting to play a lot bigger in the marketplace and starting to develop as those standards or close to standards get more developed. The ability to monetize, another way to monetize and get more incremental revenue through CDN if you're a service provider. The idea here is, better performance, using less bandwidth, that'll help reduce costs and improve quality. So a lot of that going on, as you see, Disney is pushing a lot of this in their new architectures, working with a number of people to do this in both public and private CDN implementations. New techniques, broadcasting, obviously broadcast over 5G. There's a number of projects going on where this is starting to work, and people are doing this in more of a test environment these days, but it certainly is promising and a way for broadcasters to get involved really in the OTT streaming market. Whether it's just straight streaming of channels, whether it's targeted advertising for them to get into it, educational purposes from a lot of public stations. So lots of different opportunities as we look at new technologies coming onto the marketplace. So I wanted to tie in the greener piece a little bit. We've done some studies and have tried to compare a little bit of the consumption we're using both in our encoding and compression products, compared to our storage and delivery products, and obviously compared to what we're doing up on the distribution side and satellite transmission. And if you just look from 2018 to now, it's been some massive reduction that's taken place. And even if we took those averages later, the reduction wouldn't be quite as great, but it's still really starting to look good, and people are really focused on this today of combined better processing techniques, and better coding to help make that happen and really work and reduce the carbon footprint that's out there. So with that, at the end of the day, OTT streaming certainly is a very high growth market. We all can see that happening. The challenges that we're all still trying to address as this market matures is better quality, lower latency, using that through lots of different technical techniques here, and also looking at, from a cost standpoint and incremental revenue standpoint, how to do things around personalization, targeted advertising, betting, and really make that ecosystem work. And at the same time, always reminding yourself about trying to be as green as possible and make that fit into the whole dynamic. So with that, enjoy the show. Take a look at some of these technologies out there and visit the booth. Thank you very much.